What does the anniversary of the ADA mean to you?
Things like being able to go to school and having the right to a public education, just like any of my classmates. That's something that the ADA has guaranteed, not only from a moral perspective, but now from a legal perspective too.
The ADA anniversary means an awful lot. It means for people who are in wheelchairs, people who are in canes, people who have animals, guide dogs, people who have many types of disability. Means a lot to a lot of different people.
It means we've hit a baseline marker, that we have a certain baseline set of rights and expectations that we as people with disabilities can have when we step out into the community.
It means to me freedom, it means to me acceptance, it means to me that the rest of society is accepting me as a person with a disability.
This vastly important piece of civil rights legislation, and people often think of it as more like a nice favor that we're doing for disabled people.
But I do remember being very happy about it. I remember saying, oh good, now people that need it are going to get the right seats. People that need it are going to be able to claim their rights, and because now there's a rule that says yes, this is recognizable and it's on the books, and people could point to the law.
What was accessibility like when you first started riding the T?
When I was young, everything depended upon sound. All the announcements were in spoken English. The maps were not reliable. For me, this meant paying good attention and watching for when my train would arrive.
Well, not all T-buses were accessible, and the route that I lived on was one that you had to call for an accessible bus when you needed one.
Obviously, I know what it's like to live in a society without an ADA. It was, for me, I remember one story where I got lost. I asked the driver, hey, is this bus number, whatever bus it was, 100 or whatever, and the bus driver shook his head, yes, and obviously that means nothing to me when somebody shakes their head, so just not because I can't see.
In the early 2000s, all I knew was that we couldn't take the T into Boston for day trips because the elevators were so unpredictable. And
in that time when I first got on, they didn't have customer service like they do now.
How has T accessibility improved, and what do you look forward to?
Vehicle designs that have been picked up by subway and bus were things that, some of them were things that were suggested by people with disabilities. So instead of building something that doesn't work, we built something that not only works but works better, and with the input from people who will be using the system.
Some of the improvements I've seen are the addition of visual signs with announcements. I'm able to keep an eye on these signs to see when my train is coming. I no longer have to depend on spoken English announcements, which I don't hear. The maps are accurate, and so I know where I'm going, and I know where to get off to get to where I want to go.
And there's a high level of communication. When there's an elevator outage, usually it's planned and it's for maintenance. And so I get a text a couple days beforehand, and that really allows me to account for it in my morning commute.
The stop announcements on buses, I have no fear because it says next stop Jones Street or whatever.
The improvements are good. They're starting to realize that it means a lot to people, because when the first new bus came out, we checked it out. We said what was convenient. We told them that We want the chairs to flip up.
The elevation of the new buses, where you could either sit at the bottom or you just take one step up and you're at a higher level, and you can see where you're going. You can see the signage.
I think there's also a change in policies and attitudes, like the creation of the Riders Transportation Access Group, where I'm a board member. This is kind of a really great step for the T and for the public ridership, because it kind of creates a bi-directional channel.
I look forward to accessibility being just a front of mind thing for builders and architects.
I'm excited about us trying to approach things from more of a universal design perspective so that things are accessible from the beginning. We can focus more on things like making the T more accessible for people with invisible disabilities or hidden disabilities.
The MBTA has further improvements that it could make. It has further to go. Anything can be improved. The ADA is still relevant in our lives, to the people in our community. And I know it's not always easy to continue to make improvements. And we've come a long way.
We're celebrating 30 years. And I'm so grateful for the past 30 years. But we need to do more work for the next 30 years.
A person has a role to play. We need to bring people together.
Fighting for accessibility and acceptance, it doesn't affect just me or my friends, but it affects people in 50 years from now, and it affects, other generations and lots of people.
I'm just so glad that the T is one of the most accessible public transit agencies in the entire nation, and I feel really fortunate to be living here and to be able to kind of take life into my own hands because the T is making that kind of accessibility possible. So thank you. Big thank you to the T.